The message arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning. Every screen on Earth flickered simultaneously, from Times Square billboards to smartphones in remote villages. A figure appeared, tall, regal, with skin that shimmered like polished bronze and eyes that glowed with an inner light. "People of Earth," the alien spoke in perfect English, its voice translated into all human languages simultaneously. "I am High King Orcs of the Stellar Empire, ruler of 10,000 worlds. Your primitive planet has caught our attention." In the United Nations Emergency Chamber, world leaders gathered in stunned silence. General Robert Thompson of the United States Space Force gripped his chair tightly, his knuckles turning white. Next to him, President Mary Walker kept her face carefully neutral. The High King continued, his tone dripping with superiority. "Your species has shown potential. We require new soldiers for our ongoing campaigns against rebel worlds. You will submit to imperial rule and provide troops for our military. You have 30 Earth days to comply." The alien ruler's eyes narrowed. "Refuse, and we will turn your cities to ash. Your civilization will be erased from history. Choose wisely." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving billions in shocked silence. Inside the UN chamber, chaos erupted. Representatives shouted over each other, some demanding immediate surrender, others calling for defiance. President Walker stood up slowly, her movement catching everyone's attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said calmly, "it's time to reveal Project Guardian." General Thompson nodded and pressed a button on his tablet. The chamber's main screen lit up with classified images, massive underground facilities, advanced spacecraft hidden in asteroid bases, and weapons systems unlike anything publicly known. 20 years ago, Thompson explained, we detected their communications. Every major nation pooled resources in secret. While they watched our primitive public space programs, we prepared. Data scrolled across the screen. Fleet numbers, defense capabilities, and most importantly, technologies that even the Empire didn't possess. Earth had played the long game, appearing weak while building strength. They see our old rockets and think we're barely space capable, said Dr. Anna Jones, chief scientist of Project Guardian. They don't know about our quantum stealth systems or our AI defenses. They watch our military satellites but miss the thousands of automated defense platforms hidden in plain sight. The room grew quiet as the implications sank in. Earth wasn't helpless. Far from it. They had known this day would come and had prepared accordingly. The Empire expects us to either surrender in fear or fight foolishly. President Walker continued. We'll do neither. We'll play their game, but we'll play it our way. The Indian Prime Minister spoke up. They'll demand we send representatives. We should choose carefully. Already done, Thompson replied. We have people trained for this specific scenario. They know how to act appropriately. Primitive. The Chinese president nodded in approval. The Empire believes they're dealing with simple, divided humans. This assumption will be their downfall. A plan formed quickly. Earth would appear to submit, but every step would be calculated. Every apparent concession would hide a deeper strategy. The Empire thought they were dealing with primitive humans who would either bend or break. They were about to learn how wrong they were. As the meeting concluded, President Walker looked out the window at the New York skyline. Somewhere up there, the High King waited for humanity's response, confident in his power over these primitive beings. Send the message, she ordered. Tell them we wish to discuss terms of surrender. General Thompson smiled slightly. Of course, Madam President. Operation False Flight is now in effect. In space, aboard his mighty flagship, High King Orcs received Earth's humble response with satisfaction. These humans would make excellent cannon fodder for his campaigns. He had no idea that his empire's defeat had already begun, set in motion by the very message he'd sent to intimidate Earth. The humans were coming to surrender. And that's exactly what they wanted him to think. 20 years earlier, in a small observatory on top of a mountain in Chile, Dr. Tom Reed stared at his computer screen in disbelief. The signals were unlike anything he'd ever seen before, clearly artificial and definitely not from Earth. "Jack," he called to his research partner. "Come look at this." Jack Brown hurried over, coffee cup still in hand. His eyes widened as he looked at the screen. "Those patterns, they're too regular to be natural." Within hours, similar reports came in from observatories worldwide. The signals were everywhere, hidden in what scientists had thought was background noise. Humanity had just discovered that they were surrounded by an interstellar empire, and that empire had no idea their communications were being intercepted. 1 week later, in a hidden bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, the world's top leaders met in absolute secrecy. "If they find us, they'll either destroy us or enslave us," General Thompson said, younger then, but just as serious. "We need to prepare, but we can't let them know we're preparing." Dr. Reed pointed to his data. "Their technology is advanced, but it has weaknesses. They rely too heavily on quantum communications. If we can master that technology ourselves, we can defeat them." And so Project Guardian began. Underground bases were built in remote locations across the globe. Scientists worked together in secret, while the public remained focused on traditional space programs. Every failed rocket launch was carefully planned, a show to convince watching eyes that humans were still struggling with basic spaceflight. In an underground facility beneath the Australian outback, engineers built advanced ships with quantum stealth technology. In the depths of the Atlantic Ocean, automated factories produced thousands of eye-controlled defense satellites. Deep in the Siberian wilderness, scientists developed weapons that could disable Empire technology without destroying it. 10 years into the project, they had their first success. "The quantum cloak works," Dr. Reed announced to the project leaders. The test ship had disappeared completely from all sensors, even the advanced ones they'd developed based on Empire technology. "We can hide entire fleets from their detection systems." The project expanded. Carefully selected military personnel trained on the new technologies while maintaining perfect secrecy. They learned to operate ships more advanced than anything the public knew existed. They'd practiced fighting against simulated Empire tactics, developing strategies that would work against their future opponents. 15 years after the signal discovery, Earth had more hidden firepower than most Empire battle fleets. But they kept building, kept preparing. The public space programs launched old-style rockets while the real Space Force grew in secret. "Hide in plain sight" became their motto. Every visible human advancement was carefully planned to look primitive to Empire observers. When they launched their first public Mars mission, a secret fleet of stealth ships was already patrolling the outer solar system. Now, 5 years later, their patience had paid off. The Empire had finally noticed Earth, just as they'd predicted. And like they'd expected, the High King saw only what they wanted him to see, a primitive planet ripe for conquest. In the main control room of Project Guardian, now expanded to fill an entire mountain, Dr. Reed looked at the massive display showing Earth's true defense network. Thousands of stealth satellites, hundreds of hidden ships, and dozens of weapon systems that the Empire wouldn't believe possible. 20 years of work, General Thompson said, standing beside him. Every day pretending to be weak while growing stronger. Every apparent failure carefully planned to hide our real progress. "Do you think we're ready?" Dr. Reed asked, watching the dots that represented their hidden forces. Thompson smiled. "More than ready. The Empire thinks they're dealing with primitives who barely understand space travel. Instead, they're facing an opponent who has studied them for 20 years and knows all their weaknesses." On the screen, another signal from the Empire fleet appeared. They were coming to accept Earth's surrender, completely unaware that they were flying into carefully laid trap 2 decades in the making. "Let them come," Thompson said quietly. "We're ready to show them just how primitive we really are." The Empire's capital world glowed like a jewel in space, its surface covered in sprawling cities that stretched from horizon to horizon. Admiral Jane Wilson watched it grow larger through the viewport of the diplomatic shuttle, keeping her face carefully neutral despite the excitement building inside her. "Remember," she told her team, "act impressed but not overwhelmed. We're supposed to be seeing all this for the first time." The shuttle was old and basic by Empire standards, exactly what they expected from primitive humans. Hidden beneath its simple exterior were sensors recording everything about the Empire's defenses. Every member of the diplomatic team had been chosen and trained for this mission over the past decade. The landing pad was massive, designed to show off the Empire's power. Thousands of alien guards stood in perfect formation, their armor gleaming in the light of 3 suns. High King Orcs waited at the top of the grand stairs, surrounded by his court. Admiral Wilson led her team down the shuttle's ramp, making sure to hesitate slightly at the sight of the alien display. The High King's smile grew wider. He was seeing exactly what he expected. Simple humans awed by his power. "Welcome," his voice boomed across the landing pad. "I see you have wisely chosen to accept our generous offer." Wilson bowed low, hiding her smile. "Great King, Earth is honored to join your mighty empire. We hope to learn much from your advanced civilization." The ceremony that followed was elaborate, broadcast across the empire. Earth's representatives signed treaties of submission, accepted imperial oversight, and agreed to provide troops for the Empire's wars. With each signature, hidden quantum transmitters in their ceremonial pens sent signals to waiting human agents throughout Empire space. "Your first task," the High King announced at the grand feast that evening, "will be to prepare your forces to help subdue the rebels in the outer sectors." "Of course, Your Majesty," Wilson replied. "Though we will need some time to organize our primitive military structure to match your grand standards." The High King waved his hand dismissively. "Take no more than 3 months. My advisors will help upgrade your pathetic technology to acceptable levels." Later that night, in their allocated quarters, Wilson's team activated their quantum-encrypted communicators. The rooms had been swept for surveillance devices, but they didn't need to worry. Their technology was far beyond what the Empire could detect. "Phase 1 complete," Wilson reported to Earth Command. "They've given us exactly what we needed: direct access to their military networks." Back on Earth, General Thompson's voice came through clearly. "Excellent. Our agents report the backdoor programs are already spreading through their systems. They're so confident in their superiority that their cybersecurity is surprisingly basic." Wilson looked out at the capital city through her window. They've built an empire based on fear and force, never imagining that a primitive race could threaten them. Their arrogance will be their downfall. Throughout the empire, human agents who had been placed years ago began their work. Some were diplomat servants, others were merchants, and many were maintenance workers, all positions the proud empire nobles ignored. Each one carried advanced human technology, disguised as simple tools. "Their entire communication network will be compromised within weeks," reported Agent Mark Davis, posing as a simple technician on a major imperial military base. "They're letting us access everything because they think we're too primitive to understand it." The High King slept peacefully that night in his palace, pleased with how easily Earth had submitted to his will. He dreamed of using human troops as cannon fodder in his wars, never suspecting that his empire was already being hollowed out from within. In her quarters, Admiral Wilson reviewed the day's progress. Phase 1 of Operation False Surrender was complete. Earth's apparent submission had given them exactly what they needed: access to the Empire's core systems. Now Phase 2 could begin. "Sleep well, Your Majesty," she whispered, looking toward the palace. "Enjoy your dreams of victory while you can." Operation Shadowfall began at midnight Earth time. Across the vast empire, human agents checked their watches and smiled. The real war was about to begin, and the enemy didn't even know it yet. In his hidden lab aboard the Imperial Central Station, Dr. Tom Reed, disguised as a junior alien technician, inserted a small device into the main computer core. The Empire's greatest scientists would have laughed at such a primitive-looking tool if they could have detected it at all. Virus deployment starting. He whispered into his quantum communicator. Time to show them what primitive human coding can do. Across the Empire's vast network of worlds, carefully hidden human ships emerged from their quantum cloaks just long enough to strike. They didn't fire weapons or launch attacks. Instead, they released swarms of tiny drones, each carrying a piece of Dr. Reed's special program. On the Empire's major trade route, Captain Bill Stone watched from his cloaked ship as Imperial cargo vessels passed by. Target ships identified, he reported, initiating supply chain disruption. His ship's automated systems began their work. Small quantum dots attached themselves to Empire ships, slowly corrupting their navigation systems. Within hours, shipments across the Empire would begin arriving at wrong destinations, creating confusion and chaos. At the Imperial Military Academy, where Earth was supposedly sending its first students to learn proper warfare, Agent Lisa Green taught a class on primitive human battle tactics. As she spoke, her neural implant was connecting to every military training system in the building. Remember, she told her alien students, humans are very simple in their strategy. Meanwhile, her hidden programs were rewriting the Empire's military training protocols, introducing subtle errors that would only become apparent in real combat. In the Empire's capital, Admiral Wilson attended another grand feast, playing her role perfectly. "Your Majesty," she said to the High King, "Earth's forces are eager to prove their worth in your service." The High King laughed, his golden eyes gleaming. "Patience, Admiral. First, we must upgrade your primitive weapons and ships. We can't have you embarrassing the Empire in battle." "Of course, Your Majesty," Wilson replied, hiding her satisfaction. Every upgrade the Empire provided gave humans another access point to their systems. Back on Earth, in the Project Guardian control room, General Thompson watched the operation unfold on massive screens. Thousands of green dots showed successful infiltrations across Empire space. Red dots, representing detected human activities, were almost non-existent. "Sir," a technician called out, "Dr. Reed's virus has reached 60% of Empire systems. Their AI networks are beginning to degrade, but their techs think it's just normal system strain." Thompson nodded. "What about the supply chain?" "Captain Stone reports complete success. Empire ships are already starting to show navigation errors. Their commanders are blaming their own crews. The Empire's mighty war machine was being dismantled piece by piece, and they didn't even realize it. Their own arrogance made them blind to the possibility that primitive humans could cause such sophisticated problems." In a remote Empire mining world, cargo ships started delivering food instead of fuel. On a military base, training simulations began teaching incorrect tactics. In the central banking system, transactions started showing mysterious delays. Each problem seemed minor and unconnected. Empire officials blamed computer glitches, human error, or random malfunctions. No one suspected it was all part of a coordinated attack by the supposedly primitive humans. Dr. Reed, still in his disguise, walked calmly through the Imperial Central Station. "Final phase of virus upload complete," he reported quietly. "Empire systems are now completely compromised." Admiral Wilson received the news during another diplomatic function. She raised her glass in a toast to the High King, who sat proudly on his throne, still believing he had won a great victory by forcing Earth's surrender. "To the Empire," she said, and everyone cheered. But in her mind, she added, "and to its last days of power." The silent strike had succeeded. Now they just had to wait for the Empire to realize it was falling apart. High King Orcs stood in his command center, his golden face dark with rage as reports flooded in from across his empire. Nothing made sense anymore. "Your Majesty," his chief admiral reported, "half our fleet can't reach their assigned positions. Navigation systems are failing across all sectors." Before the king could respond, another officer burst in. "Sire, the military academies report massive failures in training simulations. New graduates are making basic tactical errors. And the banking system is in chaos. added his financial minister. Trade routes are disrupted. Some worlds haven't received supplies for days. The High King slammed his fist on the command table. How? How is this happening? Find the cause. But his experts had no answers. Every time they fixed one problem, 3 more appeared. The mighty empire that had conquered 10,000 worlds was starting to crack. In a quiet corner of the Imperial Palace, Admiral Wilson watched the chaos unfold. She sent a coded message to Earth. The Empire's foundations are crumbling. Phase 3 ready to begin. Across Empire space, subject races began to notice the weakness. The proud Empire fleet, once precisely coordinated, now seemed confused and disorganized. Supply shortages led to unrest on outer worlds. Rebellion, once unthinkable, started to seem possible. On the mining world of Chorus, the local governor faced an angry crowd. "Where is our food?" they shouted. "Why do our ships bring fuel when we need medicine?" Similar scenes played out on hundreds of worlds. The Empire's perfect order was dissolving into chaos. In the Imperial Central Station, Dr. Reed, still in his disguise, monitored the spread of his virus. The Empire's mighty computer networks, once the source of their power, now worked against them. Every attempt to fix the problems only made his virus spread faster. "Sir," he reported to General Thompson, "their entire system is compromised. They've lost control of their own technology." The High King called an emergency meeting of his advisors. As they argued about solutions, Admiral Wilson sat quietly in her assigned seat, playing the role of the concerned but helpless Earth representative. "Perhaps," she suggested carefully, "Earth's simple systems could help. Our primitive technology might be more reliable." The King's advisors laughed at the idea. Their pride wouldn't let them consider help from primitives, even as their advanced systems failed around them. On Earth, in the Project Guardian control room, General Thompson watched the Empire's collapse with satisfaction. "Send the signal," he ordered. "Time for the subject worlds to learn the truth." Throughout Empire space, supposedly primitive human merchants began spreading whispers. They told stories about Empire planets, where humans had helped solve the mysterious problems. The subject races started to realize that the mighty Empire wasn't as powerful as they had believed. "Your Majesty," reported the King's intelligence chief, "we're detecting increased rebellion risk on 40% of our worlds." The High King's face showed real fear for the first time. "How can this be happening? We are the greatest power in the galaxy." But his words rang hollow as more reports arrived. Empire warships drifting in space with failed navigation. Military bases unable to coordinate defense. Supply chains in complete disarray. In her quarters, Admiral Wilson received an update from Earth. The Empire's mighty fleet was scattered across space, its fearsome weapons controlled by compromised computers. The High King's power was built on advanced technology and absolute control, and both were slipping away. "Should we help them?" "Sir," a junior officer asked the High King, gesturing to the human representatives. "Never," the King roared. "We are the Empire. We do not need help from primitives." Wilson hid her smile. The Empire's pride was finishing what human strategy had started. Soon, the King would have no choice but to act desperately, exactly as Earth had planned. "Send word to Defense Command," she secretly transmitted to Earth. "The King will strike soon. Be ready." The Empire's perfect order had dissolved into chaos, and its rulers still didn't understand why. Their next move would be exactly what humanity was waiting for. The High King stood on his flagship's bridge, his golden armor gleaming under the emergency lights. His pride, finally broken by weeks of chaos, had transformed into pure rage. "If we can't control Earth through our technology," he roared, "then we'll destroy it completely." Around him, his command crew prepared for battle. The King had gathered every working ship he could find, nearly half his once mighty fleet, 5,000 warships, their weapons primed, ready to punish the primitive world that had somehow resisted his will. Admiral Wilson, still playing her role, rushed onto the bridge. "Your Majesty." Please reconsider. Earth cannot defend against such power." The king laughed bitterly. "Watch, Admiral, as I turn your world to ash. Perhaps the other primitive worlds will learn obedience from your example." The massive fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading for Earth. In her mind, Wilson began counting down. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. On Earth, in the Project Guardian Command Center, General Thompson watched the enemy fleet approach. "All defense stations, prepare Operation Checkmate," he ordered calmly. Dr. Reed's voice came through the quantum comm. "The virus is fully embedded in their systems. They can't purge it now, even if they discover it." The Empire fleet emerged from hyperspace near Mars, their weapons charging. The High King smiled as he saw Earth ahead, seemingly defenseless. "No orbital defenses," he observed. "Not even a proper space fleet. This will be easy." Behind her back, Wilson pressed a small button on her ring. The signal raced across space at quantum speeds, triggering the trap humanity had spent 20 years preparing. Suddenly, the Empire's mighty warships began losing power. Weapons systems crashed. Navigation computers failed. Communications went dead. "What's happening?" the king demanded. His tech officers frantically worked their controls. "My king," nothing responds. "The systems, they're being controlled by something else." In space around them, things began to change. Quantum fields shifted, and humanity's hidden fleet appeared. Thousands of advanced ships, far more sophisticated than anything the Empire possessed, decloaked around the now helpless Empire fleet. "Impossible," the High King whispered. Admiral Wilson stepped forward, finally dropping her act. "Your Majesty, did you really think Earth would be defenseless? We've been preparing for this moment for 20 years. The king spun to face her, his golden eyes wide with shock. You planned this." "Every step," she confirmed. "Your empire's greatest weakness was your pride. You were so convinced of your superiority that you never considered we might be more advanced than we appeared." Outside, more human ships appeared. The Empire fleet was completely surrounded. Their weapons were useless, their engines dead. "Your ships are now controlled by our systems," Wilson explained. "The same primitive technology you mocked has defeated your entire fleet without firing a single shot." In the Project Guardian Command Center, General Thompson gave the final order. "Activate the quantum field." A massive energy field spread between the human ships, trapping the Empire fleet in a web of pure energy. The High King's flagship, trying to fire its weapons, succeeded only in shorting out its own power systems. "Your Majesty," Wilson said formally, "Earth would like to discuss new terms. This time, we'll be the ones setting the conditions." The king, his golden armor now dim in the emergency lighting, slumped in his command chair. His mighty fleet, the symbol of Empire power, floated helpless in space. Defeating Earth should have been simple. Instead, his pride had led him into a perfect trap. "How?" he asked quietly. "How did primitives defeat us?" Wilson smiled. "We were never primitive, Your Majesty. We just let you think we were. Sometimes appearing weak is the greatest strength of all." Around them, human ships moved into escort positions. The mighty Empire fleet, which had come to destroy Earth, would now be escorted back in disgrace. The king's gambit had failed spectacularly. Now it was time for humanity to reshape the galaxy. 1 month after the failed attack on Earth, the High King sat in the newly formed Galactic Council chamber. His golden throne, once towering above all others, now stood equal in height with the other seats. Around him, representatives from Earth and all former Empire worlds gathered to shape the galaxy's future. Admiral Wilson, now Earth's chief representative, stood at the central podium. "The age of Empire rule through force is over," she announced. "Today, we begin a new era of cooperation and mutual respect." The king watched silently as Wilson displayed evidence of Earth's true technological advancement. Quantum technologies far beyond Empire science. Stealth systems that made human ships truly invisible. defense platforms that could disable entire fleets without destruction. We could have destroyed the Empire, Wilson explained. Instead, we chose a better path. We disabled rather than destroyed. We helped liberate rather than conquer. Dr. Reed stepped forward next, showing how his virus had worked. Your systems were advanced but predictable. We spent years learning your weaknesses, but we also learned how to make them better, safer, more reliable. The former Empire world's representatives listened with growing interest as humans offered to share their technology, not as conquerors, but as partners. Earth's greatest strength, General Thompson added from his seat, was never our weapons. It was our ability to work together, to plan, to think differently. These are the gifts we offer to our galactic neighbors. The High King finally spoke, his voice humbler than before. I still don't understand. If you had all this power, why pretend to be primitive? Why not simply show your strength? Wilson smiled. Because real power isn't about showing strength. It's about knowing when not to use it. We could have fought your empire directly, but how many lives would that have cost? Around the chamber, heads nodded in agreement. The humans had achieved something remarkable. They had dismantled an empire without destroying it. Your world suffered under empire rule, Wilson continued, addressing the former subject races. But we don't seek revenge. Instead, we offer partnership. Earth's technology and knowledge, freely shared, to help all worlds grow stronger together. Representatives from former Empire worlds stood one by one, pledging to join the new Galactic Council, a new system of government where all worlds had equal voice, where technology served all people, not just the powerful. In a quiet moment during the proceedings, the High King approached Wilson. There's something you're not showing, isn't there? Some weapon or technology you're keeping hidden. Wilson's smile was mysterious. Let's just say, Your former Majesty, that what we showed was enough. The rest, well, let's hope we never need it. The king shuddered slightly, finally understanding. Earth's greatest weapon hadn't been technology at all. It had been patience, planning, and the wisdom to win without fighting. As the day ended, the new Galactic Council signed its founding charter. The former Empire worlds would keep their cultures and independence while sharing knowledge and resources. Earth would help rebuild the damaged systems and establish new trade routes. In the Project Guardian Command Center, now transformed into the Council's main operations facility, General Thompson watched the proceedings with satisfaction. Should we tell them about the other defense systems? A junior officer asked. The ones we never had to use. Thompson shook his head. Some mysteries are better left mysterious. Let the galaxy wonder what else we might have hidden away. It'll help keep the peace. The final ceremony was simple but powerful. The High King formally dissolved the Empire, transforming it into a cooperative alliance of free worlds. Earth's representatives signed as equals, not conquerors. As the new Galactic Council flag was raised, a symbol of unity and cooperation replacing the Empire's mark of dominance, Admiral Wilson thought about the long journey that had brought them here. 20 years of preparation, she mused, all to win a war without fighting it. The galaxy was entering a new age. The empire that had demanded war had indeed been left in shambles, not through destruction, but through transformation. Earth had won its greatest victory not by showing its strength, but by knowing when to appear weak. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, humanity's hidden weapons continued their silent watch, ready if needed, but hopefully never to be revealed.